All right, skate.
Little Rock, Arkansas, a growing, medium-sized city in the South. But for dog handlers and dog owners all across the country, it's the Emerald City, a goal they've been looking toward all year long. Hello, I'm Craig O'Neill, joined by Justin Tackett. And Justin, this city has actually been something they've been pointing toward as we now look to name 3 crown champions.
Great place to do it. Our 10th year here at SRS, we're going to look for a number of champions. We'll have a Super V champion. We'll have a Super Fly champion. And my favorite, the field trial champion. So we're going out to Mayflower with the technical ponds. We started with back in 2000 with Skeet and Barry Lyons. We've come up through the Super Sues and the Tickets and the Boomers. 10th year, man.
What dog will add their name to the list of Super Retriever legends? Let's find out as we now begin our search for the crown. I cannot express enough how much this means to dog handlers and actually dog lovers everywhere. The Crown Championship for the Super Retriever Series. Once again, I'm Craig O'Neill, joined by Justin Tackett. And Justin, even though we're awarding 1 crown, this is actually 3 competitions when you get right down to it.
It is 3 competitions when you really do, and that's a great way of thinking about it. You've got field trials, which have been around since the early 1900s over on this side of the big pond. They've been going on in Europe for hundreds of years. You've got hunt tests, which we actually have the father of all hunt tests as one of our judges here, Jack Jagoda. And then third, and maybe most importantly, and the big stickler that kind of separates the men from the boys, if you will, in the SRS, and that's hunting savvy. And the only way you can earn that is get out there in the field and hunt.
And these handlers and these dog owners, they hunt. And that comprises, actually adds a component to this competition.
Sure it does, because you know, right now there's really not an organization. HRC probably does the best job of mimicking a real hunting scenario where they have decoys and guns and they actually have poppers, which are blanks that they use at the line to try to mimic that. But you know, and they do a little calling, but in SRS sometimes, especially, I know specifically Dr. Jason Zera, one of the judges, has a 3rd series for us that's gonna rattle us. I mean, it ought to be exciting. And where they got ground blinds and they got decoys, and you've got 3 or 4 guys calling and lots of shooting. And you know, you just don't see that in normal tests, and that's something that you find at SRS. And let me tell you something, it's a difference maker.
And this is why when you win a crown, you have actually overcome probably the biggest challenge a handler and a dog can face.
Absolutely. Well, you're definitely the most versatile. I mean, there may be some arguments over who's best. We can't get into all that. I mean, you know, you like chocolate ice cream, I like vanilla ice cream, you know. But when you take the dogs from each of the worlds, if you will, you got field trials. And Armand Fangsrud and his dog Ninja are a perfect example. Dog's a field champion. He's an amateur field champion. He's a Canadian field champion. He's a Canadian amateur field champion. So a great representative of dogs of the past. He's been a national finalist on a number of occasions. So outstanding dog, and that's where you'll see the white coats come in. Strict marking, very tight lines to blinds, and a lot of discipline involved. Whereas you take a Clint Johnson and Horton, those guys, strict hunt tests. You can see an HRCH, which is from the UKC program, and MH, which is from the AKC hunt test program. And you kind of meld that guy together, and he's going to perform well anytime that Clint's going to put a shotgun on his hip. And he's trying to hold his own in the field trials. And then you take Chris Aiken and a Slide, qualified all age from the field trial program, master hunter from an AKC hunt test program, grand champion from the HRC program, as well as a hunter who owns him. And so you meld all that together, man, and I mean, you've got a great big four-wheel drive truck with a Ferrari motor in it.
Wow.
And so it's the best of all three worlds, and it's also got a pickup dump bed in the back, you know. So it can do it all, and that's what makes a dog like that so special. And in my opinion, that makes him the best and most versatile dog in the country.
And it's this versatility and this diversity that makes the Super Retriever Series so compelling. With that in mind, let's get to the action.
It's evolution in liquid form. The goal is clear and decisive. Develop the sport and make it better. The game has evolved from meager beginnings, but the game's elite players remain unchanged. The Missourian Lyle Steinman has become dominant, and his program at Castle Creek is bordering on dynasty. With 7 dogs qualified for this year's crown, anything but victory will be an upset. The only handler to ever win the crown twice is Chris Aiken, and a late season win has some momentum tumbling his way. The burden of stopping Steinman will more than likely sit squarely on Aiken's shoulders and those of fellow Arkansan Clint Johnson. But between them, they could only muster 6 qualified retrievers, one less than Steinman's record-setting 7. The amateurs are here in force with 16 retrievers. They'll rely on that bond that only an amateur can and try to overcome the odds. A singular place where grand champions and field champions can battle on level ground. A place where the true amateur can measure himself against the best. An arena where the original and true purpose of the complete gun dog can be graded. Sit steady on the tightest birds imaginable, but throw caution to the wind and dig with all you've got on the longest marks. You've got to parallel banks and grab small points, all in an effort to stay on the tightest line. Avoid the traps and tricks and focus. Refuse to get into the excitement of the call. Prove that you've truly been there when the birds poured in, and that you know that a white coat is something more than doctor's attire. It will take immeasurable cooperation and understanding between both man and dog to succeed. It's really very simple. Be great. Be great at everything.
The Super Retriever Series has been brought to you by Avery, welcome to your life. Eukanuba, make a good dog great. Max Prairie Wings, America's premier waterfowl outfitter. And by these fine sponsors: Mountaintop Custom Kennels, ProDrive, Creative Answer, and Splash Dogs.
Welcome back to Mayflower, Arkansas, the second year in a row, the home of the crown. And Justin, once again, this terrain offers a special challenge.
You know, it's only about probably 5 acres for the pond, probably another 5 acres worth of just whatever you want to do from a retriever standpoint. But you can run from any direction. The sun allows you to do it the way it's laid out. It's just about perfect. And the Eukanuba virtual course is extremely difficult for a first series, maybe more than the judges initially wanted. You see 1 and 2, just a double, not much. But mark number 1, that is a serious business mark. It's much like the mark you might see in a final series of an all-age stake. It's sitting out there. It's got a crown blind involved. You know, it's just, there's a lot of water, a lot of terrain, a lot of stuff to guess. I'm not sure exactly what's going to happen, but this dog right here, field champion, amateur field champion, should be able to show us how to do it.
This is Ninja, all the way from Missoula, Montana. This is Armin Fangsrud, his trainer or handler. And Ninja looks ready to go. That engine is running.
Big, strong dog, about 90 pounds. If he and Armin were sitting down at the restaurant, thumbing through the menu, this is exactly the test they would order.
This is Ninja's Blue Plate Special. Is that what you're saying?
Exactly. Tailor-made for him. He loves to go big, loves to go long. That first bird has got a kind of a unique concept. Now, remember, the one thing that Ninja may not have seen a bunch of in his field trials would be decoys in the field, and that's something the judges at SRS used. Jack Jagoda and Vicky Lamb kind of masterminded this. You see that first mark, or actually the first mark he's going to pick up, which is mark 2. You see that little shaded area, that's the area, and he's had a little handle here. I'm kind of surprised by that, but the long bird where he's going to make his money. I mean, he's rough and tough on the big birds, and he can pick them out just like his daddy did. His daddy was Ritz, and prior SRS champion and a field champion and one of the best markers in probably field trial history.
And despite his lineage, in a lot of cases these dogs have got champions in their past, Armin, like many of these handlers, got what we call the retriever surprise.
I was handed this little puppy, and I didn't really know what I had. I didn't realize what a really talented and extremely high-powered animal he was. I probably was not the best kind of trainer for this dog, but I did the best I could. I had some good help along the way from my nephew and brother. But he turned into quite an incredible animal, really. I mean, I took him to Canada and ran him as a qual dog. I entered him in 3 quals. He won all 3. Got an amateur second at 2. He won an 84 dog open at age 3. And we just kept going. Pretty soon he was American FC, American AFC, Canadian FC, Canadian AFC. And so then I kind of got involved in this venue. I found it very exciting, very fun. Ninja was, I think, a little bit of an anomaly, not the typical kind of dog for this game. And at first, he didn't do that well, but as time went on, he learned and I learned, and he learned how to swing with the gun and handle these in-close birds, etc. And we finally ended up winning one and placing second and qualified for this event today. He's always been fun, always been interesting. Other people love the dog. He's friendly, gregarious. He's a beautiful animal, really, to look at. I love him a lot. He's really a great dog. I hate him sometimes, but most of the time I love him a lot. He can be so exciting and so difficult at times. I actually ended up in the hospital in Canada with heart palpitations.
I felt like I needed to go to the hospital a few times. I know exactly what he means.
And unfortunately for Armin and Ninja, this is not the start they wanted. They come away with 56 faults. They got some ground to make up. We, on the other hand, have got a dock to go to with a Superfly competition. That, too, is going for the crown when we come back. You know, when we get to a crown championship, it is actually a process that we go through qualifying dogs, and we're going to take you back in time to Long Beach, California, Justin, in a venue I think you're very familiar with. This was a qualifier in our Superfly competition, but you got a real treat here.
I'm telling you, it was unbelievable. It was probably my second, it was my second dog show to ever attend the AKC Eukanuba National Championship. Outstanding. I don't know how many thousands of dogs there, probably 30 or 40,000 people showed up over a few days. Incredible thing to see, incredible thing to witness, and we had some jumping going on too.
And how appropriate was it we'd set up the pool to watch this qualifying going on with all these exciting athletes, these canine athletes jumping into the pool, an amazing competition. We had not one, but 3 Chesapeakes finished first, second, and third, and get this, they're all rescue. Here's Barbara Henderson.
A few years back, we were at an adoption event in Orange County, and a splash dog tent was there. And we said, gosh, wondered if our dogs would do it. And we took Henry over, and Henry, not knowing anything about what we were doing, Henry jumped. His very first jump was 21 feet, and somebody came up to us and said, you know, that's pretty darn good. So we started pursuing the sport and using the sport as a way to get the word out about rescue. And we have placed numerous dogs that are now competing in the sport. We recommend it to everybody because any dog can do it. Any dog can do this. Today's dogs consisted of Henry, who's a 7-year Chesapeake Bay Retriever who I've had for 6 years, rescued through Chesapeake Bay Retriever Relief and Rescue. Henry is my dog. I got him when he was a year old. He'd never even been in a house. He'd never walked on a leash. I don't know if anyone noticed, but he's missing the ends of his ears and the end of his tail. And Smoke, the newcomer who just won and beat Henry out, is a 20-month-old Chesapeake Bay Retriever that we rescued about 4 months ago. There's probably a rescue group for every purebred dog out there. There's any kind of dog you can think of that you can't find through rescue. These dogs come to us through shelters. They come to us from owners who can no longer care for them. Walk into almost any pet store, and there'll be signs up for rescue. You can go online to an organization called Pet Finder, and look up your breed, and that'll link you to a number of organizations that do rescue. It's absolutely so incredible to see the joy that the dogs get and the joy that people have watching them. You know. And it's exciting. I get a little nervous because I'm not the one who throws the toy, so I'm kind of the backseat quarterback, and probably much to the chagrin of whoever's handling them.
But somehow the dogs are able to overcome and then succeed. And here are the 3 dogs that did it the best. Smoke, Henry, and Salix, your qualifiers out of the dozens of dogs that entered this fantastic event. And it's hard not to pull for these 3. They're all rescue dogs, and when they get to the crown, they'll have a special place in our heart.
As does this year's Nike Award recipient, Bobby Wills. The definitions, it's a little fuzzy, but what more or less it means is that he showed great sportsmanship towards his dogs, fellow competitors, a tremendous love for the game, the kind of guy we all want to be when you step to the line. Bobby Wills, this year's Nike Award recipient.
And we got more handlers stepping to the line next.
The Super Retriever Series is brought to you by Avery. Welcome to your life. Eukanuba. Make a good dog great. Dog Truck. World's finest e-collars. And by these fine sponsors: Ducks Unlimited, Zinc Calls, Dog Lovers Wine Club, and by the Heart of Arkansas.
Once again, to set the scene, Mayflower, Arkansas, the home of the crown, just outside of Little Rock, Arkansas. Lots of drama going on here, Justin, as we bring Kay Gentry to the line.
Kay Gentry from Opelika, Alabama, the only handler, the only amateur handler here to qualify 2 retrievers. He's been to the dance many times before. He knows exactly what to expect, and Cutter and Jesse can both get it done.
For a big, kind of end of the year event like this, I thought it was pretty good. Most of the time, it's like the Nationals, the National Amateur or the National Open, they'll start with a double. You want just a nice, tough double. You want to give everybody a chance to kind of get warmed up and kind of dip their toes in the water before you get started. But it was a challenging double. It was not a gimme. But I thought it was a great way to start the weekend. I really did.
This first series has been tough, extremely tough, much tougher than the judges, the fans, and more importantly, the handlers ever expected.
Just a double. Maybe the worst combination of words in the English language, at least to a dog trainer. Mike Gibson and Shay D have come a long way over the last few years. They've gobbled up placements in the amateur division throughout the season. Many here think Mike and Shay D have a real shot at winning the entire event. She has proven she has the talent to play with anybody. Question is, does Mike have the experience to set her up to perform against this kind of competition? Shay D held her own, but their performance in the first was far from stellar. Terry Claycamp and Bumper, strict field trialers, this series is their game and what they would have ordered and could have given them exactly the lead they needed before the shotguns and ground blinds get loaded and laid. But the long retired bird that Lamb and Jagoda placed ever so carefully has left them walking away wondering. A veteran, Clint Johnson and Rudy have almost done it all. Last year's runner-up and the winner of this year's Avery Sporting Dog Cup were able to muster little more than an average score. Rudy came very close, closer than any to taking a commanding lead. But the door started to close on Rudy as he just missed the long mark by a few feet on the upwind side. Once again, the long bird required a handle. The handler that always seems to gather more from his retrievers than any, and always at the right time, Chris Aiken. Even after a slow year, Chris is still considered by many to be the best overall dog trainer and handler in the country. He and last year's champion Slide looked very strong on the short mark. Slide pushed hard for the long bird, being overly honest, and took too much water. Once again, the long bird has done its job and created separation. Chris's advantage will come later when things become loud and busy. He just has to hope he can hold Steinman off long enough to get there. With 7 retrievers, Lyle Steinman has to do little more than survive. He has the most bullets, and as Clint Johnson has said, he who has the most bullets often wins the war. Coot's abilities in the water once again have proven to be as good as or better than any. Coot, Jack, Rebby, and the 07 champion River seem to have no weaknesses. Steinman sits in the driver's seat after the first, and until someone can push his hand and make him take a risk, there's no reason for him to sweat.
The proof is in the pudding. You see Steinman's name up there multiple times. He's doing very well. On the amateur side of things, Kay Gentry and Cutter way ahead. Terry Claycamp's hanging in there. We still have 4 series for these guys to try to catch Steinman.
So they all have hope going into the next series. They all have a reason to be optimistic.
Remember, man, we're not through the first quarter yet. The guns and the decoys are coming. Exciting things to happen.
This is definitely the crown. So many more challenges are on the way, so many more dramas to take place, not only in the field, but also on the dock, where the Superfly Crown Championship is also being awarded. We'll be back at Little Rock, Arkansas, and at Mayflower for more excitement next week. The emotion, the ultimate, the crown. Be here.